Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the May 2022 Stranger Things comic, Tomb of Ybwen. And what is Ybwen? Well, it's obviously Newbie backwards. So, Bob Newbie. So this is kind of a tribute piece to Bob Newbie, but it's also about a little adventure between Season 2 and Season 3 of Stranger Things. So we start out January 13th, 1985? Something like that. Right? Let me look. Well, we start out with the flashback, November 1st, 1984. And then we jump to January 13th, 85. I was right. So, what's this Tomb of Ybwen? What's this adventure that the boys now have? So, January 13th, 85, there's a massive blizzard that's attacking Hawkins, Indiana. And so Will is still not dealing with Bob's death. He's fine, but he's not fine. Same thing with Joyce. They're, talking to each other. But Mr. Clark brings Will to the AV room at one point in their chatting times that they all have. Mr. Clark's a lifesaver. And so he goes over with Will that Bob is one of the original founders of the AV Club, much like what Mike had gone through back in the second season. And, Bob always had a thing for puzzles, and he left a box with like the original paperwork from the AV Club, stuff like that, petitions, fundraising stuff. And so he brings the box down in the AV room, and Will finds this treasure map, and Mr. Clark said, it can't be pirate treasure. It could be, maybe it's Viking treasure. There's an old rumor that there's a Viking treasure buried in the woods. So Will takes it upon himself that Bob left this for him, even though he didn't, because this was 20 years prior when he was still a teenager, and Will didn't even exist at that point. So Will, in trying to deal with the grief of Bob, who is passed, sets out to get Will sets out to get Mike, Dustin, and Lucas together to get the original foursome back to then go on an adventure. But it's snowing. It's snowing really hard. There's a blizzard happening. So the three boys try to convince Will to do it a different time. Was like, no, we got to do it now. So he says, all right, fine. I'm going to go home, ask my mom quick if I can sleep over, and then we'll play Dungeons and Dragons. So it's 2 hours go by. Will is in Mirkwood. He's in the forest. He's in the woods trying to find the X where Bob's map is leading to. And then once the boys realize this, they then go to find him. Talking is a problem these last couple days. Excuse me. So they go into the woods. Storm is pounding them. Dustin gets inadvertently, his feet get wet in the creek. How do you help him? So there's no frostbite. Well, Mr. Clark, Scott, is currently with his girlfriend Jen, and they're watching a movie, and there's a thunder happening with snow, which sometimes happens, and the lights go out, and then they find Scott's radio, and then pick up one of Lucas's calls, and Lucas is saying, we're lost. We're not lost, but it's snowing so bad we can't get back. And then Scott's like, oh, well, if no one can get to them and the phone lines are dead, can't obviously call police, can't call Hopper, the boys are going to not make it through the night. So, packs his gear, goes to find them, finds them, and then they all wind up finding another clue leading to a mine shaft, but like a cabin where the mine was attached to back in the day. And so they go down and they find more clues and stuff, and then eventually find Bob's treasure, which is a little pewter pendant that said Ybwen on it, which is Newbie backwards, and then a letter in it saying, if you were expecting pirate treasure or Viking treasure, obviously it's not gold, it's not diamonds, it's not silver, or something like that, but it's better than that. It's fellowship. So he was thanking whoever found it in regards to knowing that he's not alone, because someone took the time to follow his clues to find his treasure. And then it was Will was going back and forth. We're like, that's it? That's all this is? But then realizing that it is the fellowship aspect, that he is not alone because he has his friends, because he has his family, with all the Mind Flayer stuff that they just dealt with 2 months ago, leading up to new Mind Flayer stuff that they're going to be experiencing summer of 1985. It's just a great wraparound. It's a how do you deal with death? How do you deal with grief? How do you deal with certain situations as a group? You know, when Mr. Clark breaks his ankle and starts to go in and out of consciousness, how do you get him off the mountain? How do you get him out of the woods? Will you then eventually walk far enough and get radio signal and can talk to Jenny again, who then brings an ambulance conveniently? Dustin is given an extra pair of socks by Lucas. That was a cute little scene. It's just very well done in regards to filling the gaps between the seasons. And a lot of the comics that we've talked about is a lot of filling the gaps between the seasons or behind the scenes of the seasons. And I like that. I like that it adds more story to it, because a lot of time happens between the different seasons. So between season 2 and season 3, that's what, 6 months? So what happens in between the 6 months? Well, this answers what happened on January 13th, 1985. Not the rest of the 6 months, but it was still a cute little adventure dealing with all that stuff, having those open conversations with the kids. What happens next? So I really enjoyed it. Stranger Things, Tomb of Ybwen, which is newbie backwards. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.